Hello again, everybody. I'm Michael Tomasky. I'm the editor of the New Republic, and this is the new edition of Tomaskycast. And I'm joined, as you can see, by Maya Wiley. Maya, mayoral candidate in New York City recently, commentator on MSNBC, and just recently the head of the, what's it called?
The Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights.
Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. And that's a fairly new job for you. Tell people first what you do there and what the conference does.
Yeah, well, the Leadership Conference is a coalition of 230 groups. We really look like the country, diverse both in terms of race, religion, sector. We've got union membership. We've got civil rights organizations. We have religious groups that participate with us. But the bottom line is we are the coalition that got the first Voting Rights Act of 1965 passed. We really serve as the platform for advancing civil and human rights, both inside the Beltway and even internationally. We've got a team in Geneva reporting on the US progress on human rights in the United States. So that's what we do. We basically work to make democracy just, fair, equal, and inclusive.
And God willing, while you're president, you're going to pass another Voting Rights Act in the near future, we hope. But today we're really here to talk about certain events that transpired Monday night in Florida, and what's been happening since. So first of all, just your reaction when you heard that they raided Mar-a-Lago. I mean, I was just floored.
Yeah, you were rightly floored. We all were like, wow. Yeah. And, the reason for that is, except for, threats of Richard Nixon being prosecuted after he left the White House, for which he needed to be pardoned. And this is the anniversary week for that. It's the first time we've seen a former president where the FBI has gotten a probable cause, has shown a judge, remember, probable cause, to get a judge to give the FBI a warrant to do a search of the residence of a former president. That is pretty astounding in and of itself. Anything else aside, it is just unprecedented for our country. An extremely important signal that the Department of Justice is willing to use its law enforcement authority to investigate possible crimes, even if it's committed by a former president.
Yeah. So there's so many questions to ask, but what do you and people you talk to suspect he might be having in his possession down there?
Well, look, what we already know, let's start with what we know, right? The National Archives actually asked the Department of Justice to look into the fact that Donald Trump had left the White House and taken what is federal property, right? Presidential records are not owned by the person. It's owned by the office and therefore indirectly by the people of the country. And that's where the National Archives comes in. And remember back in February, Michael, National Archives went and got 15 boxes of documents that he wasn't supposed to have. And we know there was national security documents classified under our national security in those folders. We don't know how many, we don't know what they said, because it's national security. All they will say is that they were classified. But we know that they included documents that were top secret. That means extremely dangerous to our national security if any of the contents become public. And here's the point, it's a crime. It's a crime, and we have seen federal officials prosecuted and convicted for this crime of taking those kinds of documents off of federal property and to their homes, frankly. So the fact is that we know that Donald Trump had a large amount of documents, not like every president makes some mistake in how they treat some documents that really should be, sent to the archives. It happens, not to the tune of 15 boxes.
Right.
But the other thing that we know is there's already reporting that from Donald Trump's inside the White House, that he had a habit of shredding documents, one allegation that he ate them, flushed down toilets. And all of these were really indicator that there was really the possibility of a crime just with regard to how he was treating federal documents.
Yeah.
Now but here's the thing. We also know we've had these mysterious disappearances of text messages related to January 6th. We know that Donald Trump fought really hard to keep records from Congress, the litigation that went all the way up to the Supreme Court. So one of the questions is, what does he have and what do they think he has? Yeah. And what light might it shed on some of the ongoing investigations from fake electors to his engagement around conversations around throwing the election results?
Yeah. So there are two issues here. There's the mere possession of the documents, which, as you say, is a crime. And then there's the substantive content of some of these documents, which may conceal or contain, I should say, evidence of further crimes on his part. And that's why he's sitting on them, although why he hasn't flushed those down the toilet too, I don't know. But anyway, so there are two separate things going on here. So I've been going back and forth with some friends today, some of whom say, well, if the crime that the Justice Department has evidence against Trump about is only the crime of taking documents, that's not enough to justify a move like this. That people are going to look at that and going to think that that's kind of like getting Al Capone for tax evasion. Do you dissent from that, and why?
I do dissent from that, but for this reason. I mean, you could make a political argument that that's the way.
That's a political argument.
It's a political argument. I mean, I think here's the thing. As I said, we have had high-level federal officials prosecuted for this very thing. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a way of saying, well, the fact that we prosecute other people for it doesn't mean we should prosecute a former president for doing the same thing we prosecute other government officials for. Seems to me, particularly in this case, because it's an egregious case. It's not the case of a few documents, something where you could see maybe happened accidentally. As I said, it has happened in other administrations that presidents have retained documents they shouldn't have. It just never happened at this volume and with this kind of material. And I think it's from a president who has worked so hard to make sure he threw an election he was told repeatedly by his own campaign and by his own appointed attorney general that he lost, that he was told and yet continued to try to organize a way to win his election, that he also, by the way, faced his first impeachment based on not caring about whether or not he was helping a foreign government to interfere in a US election. And then we had more news in 2020 that Russian interference was going to continue, and the Trump administration was not as interested as Congress had hoped in actually taking action to prevent that. That, we have all these potential big, serious problems for the basic functioning of our democracy and the protection of it at issue, that it's a little stunning to say that somehow, unless it's a bigger crime, then frankly, possibly making us vulnerable from a national security standpoint by taking deeply serious and important documents at the volume that he did, that somehow it's politically better to look the other way. It's very important, I think, that we know that just being a person who has been empowered does not exempt you from the very things other people get prosecuted for, particularly when the stakes are potentially so high.
Yeah. We don't know yet who this judge was. We don't know much yet about the process by which this went up the chain of command or whatever. We've heard speculation on cable TV about it, but what questions are in your mind right now that you would like to know answers to?
Oh, I want to know what the probable cause was. Yeah. I mean, in other words, look, it's very hard to imagine a sitting judge taking this request lightly. Mm-hmm. The fact that a judge looked at this request, the FBI must have brought some pretty significant evidence of probable cause to be the judge that does something that's never been done in the history of the country, which is to say, yeah, I'm going to sign this warrant.
Yeah.
I think that alone makes it something that if I could read whatever that probable cause was,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd pay somebody some money if I could read that.
Yeah. We may someday soon, right?
We may.
Given the way things work. So just sum up where you think everything stands right now on this front with respect to the January 6th committee and the work they've done, and with respect to, you know, Pompeo appeared before the committee Tuesday. Tying everything together, where do you think we are as a nation in pursuit of truth?
Well, I would say as a nation in pursuit of truth, we've gotten a whole lot of truth. A whole lot. I mean, you know, frankly, I have seen public figures prosecuted on significantly less than, investigated. Let me correct that. Investigated for possible crimes on less than we have heard unfolding from the January 6th committee. I think they have done an incredible job of bringing evidence to light. It's been hard evidence, not soft evidence. It's been direct evidence. It's folks with direct knowledge being in the conversations that they're reporting on. Very different from saying whether or not a full investigation will result in indictment. I want to make that clear, but clear that there is an investigation now on fake electors. But from what we have seen from the January 6th committee, we had a whole lot of truth right now. We keep getting more of it. So the fact that the committee has said, see you in September, says that there's probably more coming, because so far, when they've said they've got more, it's been a doozy. It's been, every time they say it, I think, don't overpromise, don't overpromise. And then I think, oh yeah, you didn't. Now they haven't said how big it is, but look, I think after Cassidy Hutchinson, not that there wasn't a tremendous amount of evidence before that, but that someone who was really inside the White House in those meetings, talking directly to Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, seeing and hearing Donald Trump, seeing and hearing from his security detail, her credibility as a witness, that was just, I would say, just the point of no return in terms of this being very clear just how central the president personally was in the actions we saw, and this very serious and dangerous nature of those actions that we saw on January 6th. So I think we're in a place of much more clarity, and for the public to have that clarity than I imagined we would be in at this stage, to be quite honest. And it's because so many people have now started cooperating and coming forward.
And how nervous are you about the chain of events that might be set loose by what happened Monday night at Mar-a-Lago? There are threats of violence online. We see Republican office holders not exactly discussing violence, but certainly discussing various forms of political retribution that they might pursue. So how nervous are you about these possibilities?
I think sadly, because of what we've seen on January 6th, sadly, because we've seen who some of the foot soldiers are in the Donald Trump army, which are hate groups, extremists, I think we can't discount the possibility of violence. Certainly, I think it's critically important that we move forward in the way we must as a country for rule of law, for supporting and protecting our democracy in face of the challenges. If at any time it was important to stand up even to the threat of violence, it's now. It's now. And I think it's our best chance, frankly, of making sure we are clamping down on any permission to that violence. I think the Justice Department should be commended for prosecuting so many people who engaged in violence on January 6th. I think the fact that we have sedition charges, the most serious that could be leveled against hate and extremist groups that were those foot soldiers, and that we heard from the January 6th committee, really actively organized and potentially in coordination with close-in Trump advisors, that this kind of activity of not backing down is one of the ways in which we make it more difficult for violence both to happen and to feel free to happen, right? We have to raise the stakes and say, you're not going to stop the rule of law just because you threaten us with violence.
Yeah. Do you have a sense now that you feel like Garland is more aggressive than you thought a week ago, 2 weeks ago? Do you think he's going to bring an indictment against Donald Trump?
I think Merrick Garland is who Merrick Garland has always been. Yeah. A true blue law enforcer who starts with the evidence and works his way and does it apolitically. And I think that's what he's still doing. Yeah. I just think we have gotten to a point, both in the development of the evidence, that we're seeing the fruits of that. How far it goes, we still don't know, because what I do think is that Merrick Garland is going to base that on the evidence. But what we have seen yesterday is, they're going to pursue, as the Attorney General said, they're going to pursue the evidence, and they're going to pursue it against whomever is implicated by the evidence. And we saw that yesterday.
Yep. Let me close by asking you a little bit about another matter. Congress, good things happening lately. How do you size up this change, and how important do you think this bill is?
Look, I think it's a monumental bill. I don't think there's any question about it. When it comes to climate action, it's the largest we've had. When it comes to healthcare, the fact that there's some ability now for Medicare to actually negotiate prices and bring down prescription drug prices, which we know has been an ongoing fight in Congress for decades. Yeah. It's a big step in a really important set of directions. Is it everything that we need? No. But in the context of our politics today, the deep division, the fact that we can't get bipartisanship on things that are all Americans need, it's a major step forward, and at a critically important time, obviously politically, in which it's important to show that there's progress made inside the Beltway, notwithstanding how broken it is. Now, I think for those who say, yes, but we need more, I think the answer is yes, that's true. The way we're going to get more is by more and more people seeing that engaging in our elections matters, and having a vote is having a voice. And so for all those who say, it doesn't matter whether we vote, boy, is it going to matter in these midterms and in 2024. And if we want more, we have to vote for more.
Well said. That's a good place to end it. Maya Wiley, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. It was wonderful to be with you.